Hi everybody, it's Miss Karen, the Young Adult Librarian at the Goshen Public Library, back again with another installment of Fairytale Friday's Fractured Favorites. This week we'll be reading Sleeping Beauty, featured in the Brothers Grimm collection, and I'll show you a few young adult retellings of Sleeping Beauty that you can check out that are a little more current. Right, so let's get started. Sleeping Beauty. In times past there lived a king and queen who said to each other every day of their lives, "Would that we had a child," and yet they had none. But it happened once that when the queen was bathing, there came a frog out of the water, and he squatted on the ground and said to her, "Thy wish shall be fulfilled. Before a year has gone by, thou shalt bring a daughter into the world." And as the frog foretold, so it happened. And the queen bore a daughter, so beautiful that the king could not contain himself for joy. And he ordained a great feast. Not only did he bid to it his relations, friends, and acquaintances, but also the wise women, that they might be kind and favorable to the child. There were 13 of them in his kingdom, but he had only provided 12 golden plates for them to eat from. One of them had to be left out. However, the feast was celebrated with all splendor, and as it drew to an end, the wise women stood forward to present to the child their wonderful gifts. One bestowed virtue, one beauty, a third riches, and so on. Whatever there is in the world to wish for. And when 11 of them had their say, in came the uninvited 13th, burning to revenge herself. And without greeting or respect, she cried with a loud voice, "In the 15th year of her age, the princess shall prick herself with a spindle, and shall fall down dead." And without speaking one more word, she turned away and left the ball. Everyone was terrified at her saying. When the 12th came forward, for she had not yet bestowed her gift, and though she could not do away with the evil prophecy, yet she could soften it. So she said, "The princess shall not die, but fall into a deep sleep for 100 years. Now the king, being desirous of saving his child, even from this misfortune, gave commandment that all the spindles in his kingdom should be burnt up. The maiden grew up, adorned with all the gifts of the wise women, and she was so lovely, modest, sweet and kind and clever, that no one who saw her could help loving her. It happened one day, she being already 15 years old, that the king and queen rode abroad, and the maiden was left behind alone in the castle. She wandered about into all of the nooks and crannies, and into all of the chambers and parlors, as the fancy took her, till at last she came to an old tower. She climbed the narrow winding stair which led to a little door, with a rusty key sticking out of the lock. She turned the key, and the door opened, and there in the little room sat an old woman with a spindle, diligently spinning her flax. "Good day, mother," said the princess. "What are you doing?" "I'm spinning," answered the old woman, nodding her head. "What thing is that twists round so briskly?" asked the maiden, and taking the spindle into her hand, she began to spin. But no sooner had she touched it than the evil prophecy was fulfilled, and she pricked her finger with it. In that very moment she fell back upon the bed that stood there, and lay in a deep sleep. And this sleep fell upon the whole castle. The king and queen, who had returned and were in the great hall, fell fast asleep, and with them the whole court, the horses in their stalls, the dogs in the yard, the pigeons on the roof, the flies on the wall, and the very fire that flickered on the hearth became still and slept like the rest. And the meat on the spit ceased roasting, and the cook, who was going to pull the scullion's hair for some mistake he had made, let him go and went to sleep. And the wind ceased, and not a leaf fell from the trees about the castle. Then round about the place there grew a hedge of thorns, thicker every year, until at last the whole castle was hidden from view, and nothing of it could be seen but the vane on the roof. And a rumor went abroad in all the country of the beautiful sleeping Rosamond, for so was the princess called. And from time to time many kings' sons came and tried to force their way through the hedge, but it was impossible for them to do so, for the thorns held fast together like strong hands, and the young men were caught by them, and not being able to get free, there died a lamentable death. Many a long year afterwards there came a king's son into that country, and heard an old man tell how there should be a castle standing behind the hedge of thorns, and that there a beautiful enchanted princess named Rosamond had slept for 100 years, and with her the king and queen and the whole court. The old man had been told by his grandfather that many kings' sons had sought to pass the thorn hedge, but had been caught and pierced by the thorns, and had died a miserable death. Then said the young man, "Nevertheless, I do not fear to try. I shall win through and see the lovely Rosamond." The good old man tried to dissuade him, but he would not listen to his words. For now the 100 years were at an end, and the day had come when Rosamond should be awakened. When the prince drew near the hedge of thorns, it was changed into a hedge of beautiful large flowers, which parted and bent aside to let him pass, and then closed behind him in a thick hedge. When he reached the castle yard, he saw the horses and brindled hunting dogs lying asleep, and on the roof the pigeons were sitting with their heads under their wings, and when he came indoors, the flies on the wall were sleeping. The cook in the kitchen had his hand uplifted to strike the scullion, and the kitchen maid had a black fowl on her lap ready to pluck. Then he mounted higher and saw in the hall the whole court lying asleep, and above them on their thrones slept the king and the queen. And still he went farther, and all was so quiet that he could hear his own breathing. And at last he came to the tower, and went up the winding stair, and opened the door of the little room where Rosamond lay. And when he saw her looking so lovely in her sleep, he could not turn away his eyes, and presently he stooped and kissed her. And she awaked, and opened her eyes, and looked very kindly on him. And she rose, and they went forth together. The king and the queen and the whole court waked up, and gazed on each other with great eyes of wonderment. And the horses in the yard got up, and shook themselves. The hounds sprang up and wagged their tails. The pigeons on the roof drew their heads from under their wings, looking round, and flew into the field. The flies on the wall crept on a little farther. The kitchen fire leapt up and blazed, and cooked the meat. The joint on the spit began to roast. The cook gave the scullion such a box on the ear that he roared out, and the maid went on plucking the fowl. Then the wedding of the prince and Rosamond was held with all the splendor, and they lived very happily together until their lives' end. And that is the original story of Sleeping Beauty. So our first young adult retelling is called A Wicked Thing by Rhiannon Thomas. We do have this book available in the collection to check out, so if you are interested in checking that out after you finish watching this, you can reserve it in the catalog, or you can give us a call and we'll pull it for you. Let me read to you a little bit about what this one is about. I think this one sticks pretty closely to the original story of Sleeping Beauty. A spinning wheel, a prick of a finger, a terrible curse. 100 years after falling asleep, Princess Aurora wakes up to the kiss of a handsome prince in a broken kingdom that has been dreaming of her return. All the books say that she should be living happily ever after, but as Aurora understands all too well, the truth is nothing like the fairy tale. Her family is long dead, her true love is a kind stranger, and her whole life has been planned by the political forces while she slept. Everyone expects Aurora to marry her betrothed and restore magic and peace to the kingdom before a revolution tears it apart. But after a lifetime spent locked in a tower for her own safety, Aurora longs for the freedom to make her own choices. When she meets a handsome rebel, she is tempted to abandon everything for a different kind of life. As Aurora struggles to make sense of her new world, she begins to fear that the curse has left its mark on her, a fiery and dangerous thing that might be as wicked as the witch who once ensnared her. With her wedding drawing near, Aurora must make the ultimate decision on how to save her kingdom. and marry the prince or run. So this is Sleeping Beauty after she wakes up and has to decide, does she really want to marry the prince, or is there something else out there that she wants more? So if you're interested in a different kind of Sleeping Beauty story, check out A Wicked Thing by Rhiannon Thomas. The other stories that I'm going to tell you about today are not available in the collection as regular books, but we do have them available on Overdrive as ebooks. So the first one is called Once Upon a Dream, and it's by Liz Braswell. You can see that. This is part of the Twisted Tales series. The description says, what if Sleeping Beauty never woke up? Once Upon a Dream marks the second book in a new YA line that reimagines Disney stories in surprising new ways. It should be simple. A dragon defeated, a slumbering princess in a castle, a prince poised to wake her. But when the prince falls asleep, as his lips touch the fair maidens, it's clear that this fairy tale is far from over. With a desperate fairy's last curse controlling her mind, Princess Aurora must escape from the different castle of thorns and navigate a dangerously magical landscape created from her very own dreams. Aurora isn't alone. A charming prince is eager to join her quest, and old friends offer their help. But as Maleficent's agents follow her every move, Aurora struggles to discover who her true allies are, and moreover, who she truly is. Time is running out. Will the Sleeping Beauty be able to wake herself up? So that is Once Upon a Dream by Liz Braswell. And it sort of follows, sounds like the Disney version a little bit of Sleeping Beauty. So the second book I'm going to show you available on Overdrive is called A Long, Long Sleep, and it's by Anna Sheehan. You can see that? Let's see. Okay. A Long, Long Sleep is about, let's see. It should have been a short, suspended animation sleep, but this time Rose wakes up to find her past is long gone and her future full of peril. Rosalinda Fitzroy has been asleep for 62 years when she is woken by a kiss. Locked away in a chemically induced slumber of a stasis tube in a forgotten sub-basement, 16-year-old Rose slept straight through the dark times that killed millions and utterly changed the world she knew. Now her parents and her first love are long gone, and Rose, hailed upon her wakening as the long-lost heir to an interplanetary empire, is thrust alone into a future in which she is viewed as either a freak or a threat. Desperate to put the past behind her and adapt to her new world, Rose finds herself drawn to the boy who kissed her awake, hoping that he can help her start fresh. But when deadly danger jeopardizes her fragile new existence, Rose must face the ghosts of her past with open eyes or be left without any future at all. So this is a sci-fi version, I would say, of Sleeping Beauty. It's going to be a little different, but the same basic story exists. So that's A Long, Long Sleep by Anna Sheehan. And this one and the last one I showed you are both available to check out on Overdrive. So you can use your Goshen Public Library card, search for them on the Overdrive app, and you can check them out as ebooks. All right, so I hope you enjoyed Sleeping Beauty and our Sleeping Beauty retellings. And I will be back next week with a brand new story and brand new retellings. Have a great week.